So a few days ago, I had to put my dog to sleep, Ralph, and the day of, so many things became very evident to me about death and kind of the business. And so every time as a funeral director I experience a death, I feel like I'm enlightened about grief and about loss and about just the process in general. And I know some of you are going to say, yeah, it's a dog, it's not a person, but if your animal is part of your family, then you know that the loss it hits home just as much as losing a person, especially when you can't explain to that animal why they're going to be gone and how much you love them and things, because the, I guess, language barrier between animal and human. But so a few things really came to light, so I wanted to share kind of the things I learned when I had to put my dog to sleep, which I hate that phrase. There should be something different, because we like to say that people are not sleeping when they're in the casket, so why are we putting our dogs or pets to sleep? It's when you're killing your animal, I guess, is what it is, but it's such a harsh way to put it. So the first thing that was very evident was that I've heard families say a lot of times that when people try to commiserate with you and be on the same page with you, that you kind of want to punch them in the face. And it was so true. So everybody, I would say, I lost my dog, or I have to put my dog to sleep, and they would say, oh, I've lost my pet, I know exactly what you're feeling. I wanted to punch them and say, no, you don't know what I'm feeling. This is my dog. You're not losing my dog. You have no idea what I am feeling, and this is not the same as you losing somebody. So I've talked about that before, you know, what to say and what not to say to somebody when they've had a loss, and that is so true. Do not compare your loss to theirs. Do not downplay what they're feeling at that moment by sharing what you're feeling, even though I kept trying to remind myself they don't know what to say to me. They're just trying to comfort me because they don't know the words. So that definitely ring so true on that day. So the second thing that was really evident to me was that knowing the death was coming made it a million times worse. It felt like I kept thinking about after the death. Like, I can't imagine Thanksgiving next week without him. And I can't imagine Christmas without him there. And I can't imagine all these things without him in the picture, because he's been in the picture for 13 years. Every time we do this, or every time we go for a boat ride, or every time we go get our Christmas tree, or when we, you know, all these moments that he's always been a part of, thinking about him not there was almost sadder than the actual death itself at the moment. So I finally realized that I was getting myself so worked up thinking about past the death that I said I have to stop thinking about next week or tomorrow even. I have to think about today and what is happening today and what I'm actually doing. So I can't even imagine someone doing like Death with Dignity, or, you know, choosing for themselves that moment, let alone when I was having to choose it for somebody else. I get difference between animal and human, so you don't have to you don't have to scold me on that one. But just, you know, comparing some of that in my mind, that's definitely difficult. I cannot even imagine having to make some of those choices. So the third thing that I kind of realized was doing everything so quickly. You know, I decided that morning that yes, it was the day and it needed to happen. And then it was so quick. It was so quick. Him, you know, when they gave him the medicine and he was gone within a breath. And then within an hour, we had buried him. And I got done and I was like, what just happened? So I cannot imagine for, you know, religions like Muslim, where you wash the person and they're buried and it all happens within a few hours, and then you wake up the next morning and it's got to be like, what just happened? It has to be very surreal, rather than, you know, in some cultures and you know, in a traditional service, or, you know, in an Irish wake, or, you know, different things where you have days where you can kind of let the information sink in by looking at the person and by spending time and by going through all these steps, whereas having it happen really fast and really quickly, it's like your mind and your body and your heart and everything can't catch up to what's going on. But then I think, what about direct cremation, where somebody dies and they're just gone, and you just get back this box of cremated remains, and how do you even process any of that? So thinking a lot about those situations and kind of how those play out, and how, you know, psychologically and emotionally that has to affect everything. So then I also was thinking about, you know, my days after, and that I was walking around with this pain inside of me, but it wasn't anywhere else. It's not like you're wearing a shirt that says, "Hi, I lost my dog," or "Hi, I lost my husband," if you've lost your spouse, or "Hi, my child died," and you go to the grocery store and you have a hard moment and you're just a little teary over something, and it's not like you wear this badge of death. And so, you know, back in the day when they did wear, like, people would wear a black band on their arm for like a certain period of time, or in certain cultures where, like, the widow wears black or does certain things for an extended period of time so everybody knows that they've had a loss. Like, I totally get that, because when you're walking around and you've had this hurt and you've had this loss and nobody else knows that it's going on, you kind of want to share so that other people understand that you're hurt and that you might be quiet, or that you might get a little teary over things. And so I found that I kind of would put it into conversation if I was talking to somebody, like, yeah, you know, I had to put my dog to sleep yesterday, or put down my dog, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." It was kind of like I was, you know, incorporating it in conversation so that I could talk about it, because it made it more real, and it made it sink in a little more that it was part of what was happening with me. And I wanted people to know what was going on with me, because they didn't know. So I can see why people do that, and why they let people in when they don't even realize why they're saying it. And you kind of catch people off guard, but it's for your own sanity almost, that you want people to know what's going on with you. So the last thing that really struck me, as a funeral director, we have that switch that flips on and off when somebody dies, that we kind of curb some of our emotion and allows us to do our job and take care of people. And when I lose somebody close, you know, when my grandparents died, when my niece died, when friends have died, that switch flips on, whether you want it to or not, whether you're the funeral director or not, because you kind of go into work mode, and you kind of go in the safe zone that you have built up for yourself so that you can do what you're doing. And it turns on and off whether you're part of the service or not, because that's just how you physically have been, you know, all your components are. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't get my crap together when my dog died. And it finally dawned on me that I couldn't go to that safe zone. I couldn't be the funeral director. I couldn't do anything that I usually would. So I was just left to be the person losing someone. And I couldn't do anything I usually would do. And so I was ugly crying a lot. Like, loud, waily, didn't know what was going on, ugly crying, because of the loss. So it became even more apparent to me that as funeral directors, we process loss so much differently, because we do go into that zone. But I didn't have my safe zone this time. So thank you guys for listening. I just wanted to share some of these insights. I thought they were really important. We're sitting, this is his flower on his grave. He's at my mom and dad's house, which was probably his favorite place to be ever. So I'm so glad that we chose to bury him here. And originally I was going to cremate him, and decided that wasn't exactly the thing for me. So I'm glad that he's here. I'm glad that my kids can visit him here and come out and, you know, do what they want to do if they want to come out to where he's buried. So thanks guys so much for listening, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.